Hello, everyone. When I see waves, that tells me you can hear me. I'm so excited to see you. I never know now that the weather's getting better and places are opening up and things are, kind of changing. Are you still coming in to see me? And so far, we've got 53 of you. I'm so happy to see you. I'm going to start off things a little different today. First, a hello to all of you if you are new to these cooking classes. My name is J.L. Fields. I am a cookbook author and I teach vegan cooking classes, and I founded the Colorado Springs Vegan Cooking Academy. And I, like most of you, had to basically stop what I was doing about 12 weeks ago due to COVID-19. And I immediately started teaching vegan cooking classes online on Sundays, same time. And this is the time where I ask people to, in the chat, look at the bottom of the screen. You're going to see a chat window. If you click that, you can tell us, where are you from? Tell us, everybody. I don't see anything happening in the chat. Okay, we've got Atlanta, St. Paul, Laura, Sharon from Colorado Springs. We've got Santa Cruz. We've got New Jersey, New York, LA, hi, beautiful, Vail, Phoenix, Florida. Oh, this is so great. I'm so happy to see all of you. So those of you who are watching on YouTube, you just have to suffer through these conversations I try to have with folks here in the chat. And so as I said, I started teaching these vegan cooking classes. But today I just want to, I usually try to share some links with you guys. You know that I've been wearing vegan t-shirts every Sunday. And you guys always ask where they're from. So I thought today I would show you the t-shirt that I chose. And my t-shirt is Vegan Means Justice. And the reason I chose to wear that shirt today is because, one, that defines my veganism. Everybody comes to this for a variety of reasons. I am a vegan chef and a vegan cookbook author. I did not kind of become a part of this movement for my health, although I have great health as a result. But I came to it from a perspective of justice and in believing that all beings have the right to live freely. And without fear of violence. And so I do everything that I can in my career and as a volunteer to keep animals from being harmed. And I also try to be a good human and try to make sure that people can live free and equally. And our country is hurting this week. So I wanted to say to those of you who are here and you are Black, even though I can't see you right now, I see you, I hear you, and I feel for you. And for those of you who are people of color, who are often also experiencing so much of what's happening right now, I see you and I appreciate you as well. I'm white, you probably figured that out. And a lot of you are too. And so I thought that you might want to, at this point, try to figure out how you can be an ally and how you can consider being a part of movement that understands that people of color are not responsible for ending racism. Privileged white people are. And so what I wanted to do today was to share a couple of books with you. I'll put them in the links that you might find helpful if you want to explore this, to think about how you can be an ally for what's happening in the world. So thank you for giving me this moment. I have a platform and I get to choose how I want to use it. And if I've offended any of you, I cannot say I'm sorry. This is important to me. And I hope that that you appreciate where this was coming from. But what's happening in the world right now, there's no way we could just start getting down, drinking beer mimosas and making vegan food without acknowledging that people and animals are hurting on this planet. And we all have a responsibility to be good stewards to all beings. So with that, how about we make a beer mimosa? Okay, thank you for comments, everybody. So I decided today, actually, because I was like doing a lot of food prep, the topic today is vegan breakfast ideas. And we haven't had Jeff on for a while. Jeff from Local Relic had been popping in with some beer and wine recommendations each week. And then things got really busy. Colorado Springs started opening up slowly last week. And more and more places will be opening. I'm not going to lie, I haven't been anywhere yet other than with my mask to pick things up, but that's my own stuff. You guys are, those of you who've been around in it for a few weeks know why I'm making that decision. But Jeff at Local Relic has been doing something really cool, which is when they reopen next week, they are reopening rebranded Local Relic Artisan, I think it's Artisan Beers or Artisan Brews, I can't recall exactly. And they're opening up a wine bar within the Carter Payne. So the Carter Payne, you guys, is this African-American church, historic African-American church that Jeff bought and turned into what he wanted to be, just sort of like this community space. And it's called the Carter Payne. And so there is a wine bar opening called Crusade, which will have 30 types of wine available by the glass. So in the same way someone might go and get a flight of some of their artisan beers, you can do that with wine. And they're also going to have 2 food experiences there now. Immersed Cuisine will continue with a revised menu. And then a place called BFD, which can be translated a couple of ways, but they mean breakfast for dinner. And they're going to have some vegan options as well. Yay. So I'm channeling Jeff and thanking him for all that he's done for us. And I went in yesterday to pick up some things. I'm a member there. So they had our member beers. And they had this cranberry orange Brett. And when I saw it this morning, and then I saw I had a couple of oranges and it's breakfast, it seemed like it might be time for a beer mosa. So if anybody has some orange juice at home, grab some orange juice. Usually the formula for a beer mosa is about 1/4 cup of orange juice. We'll consider that. And that was fresh squeezed this morning. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of this cranberry orange Brett. Doesn't that sound amazing and perfect? And look at that pink color. I'm making me a pretty little drink. It's breakfast, y'all. I'm having fruit. It's orange juice. Let's not judge. Okay. So if anybody's having a beer mosa or having a glass of wine or having a beer or having a kombucha or some sparkling water or some coffee or tea, cheers. Let's get started. Oh my God, this is so good. He needs to add that for their breakfast for dinner, right? Breakfast for dinner, they need to have a beer mosa. That's what I'm thinking. Okay. So here's what's going on today. So today, the topic came from you all, and you wanted to see some vegan breakfast ideas. So I just decided to not do anything terribly fancy, and y'all are like, yeah, you never do anything fancy. True story. And instead, I thought I would just make breakfast the way I make breakfast. And I know some of you are going to get a little irritated because you really like to have recipes. I love you. Mwah! But it's probably not going to happen today. Well, a little bit. But I will make a point when I get the blog post up later with the link to the video. I will try to help you out a little bit with some measuring. But I also, some of you, when I surveyed you to ask about what kinds of classes you wanted in the future and what some of your cooking questions were, a lot of you were asking about intuitive cooking. Like, just how do you know how to put things together and what spices or flavors go together? And so I'm going to do a little bit of that today, just to show you my thought pattern that goes behind it. So, oh, good. So Lisa says freestyle cooking. And oh, good. And I see some Colorado Springs folks are excited about the changes at Local Relic. It's very exciting. So those of you who are just joining in, great to see you. I want to get over 100 because that's why I have this Zoom room, because I can take over 100. So tell your friends to come on over here. So I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to make for you today a classic tofu scramble, but I'm also going to show you that what does classic really mean when it comes to a tofu scramble. Make whatever the hell you want. And I'm going to show you the kinds of things I like to put in a tofu scramble. But what I'm going to start, because I'm going to be using an Instant Pot, is I'm also going to make savory oats, because some of you have been asking about savory oats. A lot of you might be eating oatmeal or steel cut oats for breakfast, and then you get in this rut and you're like, if I have one more oat, I'm going to scream. And usually people have oats with, you know, like maybe a splash of almond milk or soy milk and some fruit, a little maybe pinch of brown sugar. But to make them savory just opens up so many opportunities for flavor profiles. And speaking of breakfast for dinner, what's really cool, like that tofu scramble you make for breakfast is a perfectly fine lunch, and it's a perfectly fine dinner. And so are savory oats. Of course, so are sweet eat too. I mean, who cares about rules? But the point being, when you start to do savory oats, you can kind of take it out of your head that it's a breakfast, and instead say, okay, I'm finding a new way to enjoy a grain with vegetables. Because as we know, or if you don't know, if you're new to this, is that Really, at the end of the day, there are simply 5 vegan food groups, and they are vegetables and fruit, beans and legumes, nuts and seeds, and grains. So whenever I'm putting a meal together, that's always kind of what I'm thinking about. How many elements of the 5 vegan food groups can I bring in? Now, sure, there are lots of other great things that you can buy at a store in a package that's vegan. You don't need it, but it's good, so you can have it. But if you just want to have, you know, start with the basics, those are the basics. So I'm going to kind of show you my approach with that, with these savory oats. I'm going to make them in a multi-cooker. I'm going to make them in my Melfi. And I'm trying to see if I've made a list of my ingredients. Kind of. So I'll drop this in the, so these are sort of the ingredients that I'm using. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using some olive oil in my tofu scramble. And you all know that I'm not like anti-oil. If it's vegetable oil, it's vegan and I'm all for it. But Mama also likes a vegan cupcake. So sometimes I make some choices about where I'm going to do what so that I can have all the things. So since I'm going to be using some oil in my tofu scramble, I'm actually going to use a combo of some rice vinegar and some tamari to be sort of my base for the saute that I'm going to start with my savory oats. Now, I ask this every week. I know you're bored with it already, but who knows why I like to do a saute feature when I'm using a multi-cooker? I'm looking in the comments. Because it preheats it, Sharon, ding, ding, ding. So by preheating it, if you're new to the Instant Pot or multi-cooker, sometimes you can be frustrated when you want to pressure cook something because you're like, hey, they said this was only 6 minutes, but this took a lot longer than 6 minutes. Well, it has to come up to pressure, cook at pressure, and then come down. So it's never going to be 6 minutes in the first place, but the coming up to pressure can happen a lot quicker if you do a saute function. So I'm just going to drizzle a little rice vinegar in here to get going. And I'm going to add a little tamari, which is soy sauce, but without the gluten. That's not why I'm using it. I eat gluten, but it's what I have. I have tamari. And I'm just going to get that in there, and I'm going to start with a little saute. So here's my other confession. You guys have already picked up on this on Sundays. Sunday is the day before my produce delivery comes. So things looking a little, you know, it's Sunday, man. I don't, you know, I look in the refrigerator, I'm like, what have I got? So basically what I make for you on Sundays is real life. It's the day before my produce comes. So I'm going to show you, like, what do I do? How do I work with what I have left? And so I started looking around at what I had left, and I had found some mushrooms and some shallots. I love shallots. I don't know if you're using shallots very much, and if you haven't used them before, so they look just like a red onion. And they're beautiful. They have tons of flavor, and they can be hot, just like an onion, and they can make you cry. I'm not going to lie. Even before I cried before that when I was cutting my shallot. So I'm going to throw some of these diced mushrooms and shallots into the pot. And then I'm just going to kind of let that heat up a little bit. But you all probably have figured out, in my cookbooks, I'll say things like saute for 3 minutes until the onion is soft, or the onion is translucent, or until it's fork tender. Not when I'm cooking at home. Screw that. I just threw everything in, whatever. So I had yellow squash left over. So I've just took one yellow squash. I had, oh my God, you guys, last night for dinner, I don't know if you saw it on Instagram, but I had two yellow squash that earlier in the week, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited I got yellow squash, because now I love summer squash now. Who knew? And I don't have to fry it to love it. Anyway, I forgot how excited I was. And last night I found both. So I thought, well, one's going to go in breakfast tomorrow, but the other one I just sliced up I just sliced it into rounds actually. And then in the same way as last week when I did the zoodles, the zucchini noodles, I just used olive oil, garlic, and red pepper flakes and just sauteed the yellow squash rounds and put that in a bowl. And then I made a marinara sauce with soy curls and spooned that on top. But before I spooned it on top, I took some Kite Hill ricotta. And so I stirred in about a 1/4 cup of this into the marinara sauce with the soy curls. Oh my God, you guys, it was so good. Anyway, I digress, but what's new? Basically what I do whenever I'm with you, digressing. Okay, so my squash is going in. You can see the pot is starting to get nice and hot. And then the other, oh, it smells so good. There's just something about vinegar and soy sauce and tamari that just smells so amazing. Sorry you can't see it, but as you know, I'm cooking for my kitchen because it's the real world. So I also had bok choy. So I still have 2 other heads of bok choy that I'm actually going to, I think in my small Instant Pot, my 3-quart, I'm just gonna add some more mushrooms, some soy sauce and rice vinegar, and just do a quick 0-minute saute. Because then if I cook them today, I can still use them for the next couple of days. So that's just a little tip. When you start to see some of your produce going, you don't have to use it necessarily, but you might want to cook it so that you can then use it for a couple of more days. So as soon as I cook the bok choy, like I'm going to do here and like I'm going to do later with the saute, I can still eat that through Wednesday. So it is a way to sort of stretch your veggies. So I'm going to add the bok choy. And if you're new to bok choy, kind of like it's from the cabbage family. And what you want to do, actually I'll show you, is because some people haven't used it before. You cut this part off, right? Just the stem, the root here. And then from the bottom here, you open it up and then rinse it because there's sometimes some sand and dirt can be in there. And then just chop the entire thing. You want the white and the green. You're going to get all of that yummy stuff. So that's how you kind of work with bok choy. So I've got my veggies in here. So this is probably at this point pretty close to 4 cups of vegetables, but keep in mind that the bok choy, especially because I'm about to pressure cook it, is really going to cook down. So my formula for oats when I'm pressure cooking them is with rolled oats. This is 1 cup of rolled oats. So I'm going to add this to the pot. And then I have some veggie broth that I just bought in bulk. So look, you can see that there are some little herbs and spices in there, and I'll show you. I think I got it at, well, I'll know in a minute. I got it at Whole Foods in the bulk section. So you guys know I've talked to you a lot about adding a lot of variety of flavor to your cooking and bringing out umami. And I don't buy boxes of veggie broth. I buy powder because it gives me lots of flexibility. And this is just a simple sort of herb and spice filled veggie broth that I buy in bulk. And so I'm not spending a lot of money. I'm spending pennies or maybe $1 or so. And this is, each teaspoon is a cup of veggie broth. So that's the broth that I'm going to use with this. So I'm just going to, you know, kind of whisk it up again. And then I'm going to get this in. For rolled oats, so I'm going to stir it well. And for rolled oats, I typically cook that for 6 minutes on high pressure. Oh, always look to make sure that your silicone gasket is in place. I yesterday was trying to make something and was like, what is going on? And it was because I didn't check my lid. So now I'm going to cancel the saute. I'm going to choose pressure cook. I want high pressure for 6 minutes. And with this one, you can actually control whether it quick releases or natural, and I want natural. So I've moved it over to that. So now this is gonna cook. Just in case I forget, I have some nutritional yeast, and that's how I'm gonna season this once this is done. I'm gonna be cooking this on high pressure using a natural release. So I'll wait until the float valve comes down on its own. And then what I'll do is if I need to, if there's too much broth, I'll simmer it a little bit and then I'll add some nutritional yeast. And I have not added any salt because I used vinegar and I used tamari, which is a soy sauce. So I might have plenty of flavor already. And the nutritional yeast might be the thing that takes it over and makes it perfect. And if not, I'll probably just add a little splash of soy sauce, but I promise that I will be honest with you when I taste it and we'll see. Are there any questions about that right now? How much broth? 4 cups. So it was 1 cup of rolled oats to 4 cups of liquid. So if you were doing this as a sweet breakfast, then you could just use water. You could also use a plant-based milk. Sometimes a plant-based milk can curdle up a little bit, but that only curdled up in the sense of the way it looks. We eat with our eyes first, so if it's a turn off, don't do it. I'll eat anything, and so even if it curdles up a little bit, I'm just gonna stir it up and I'm gonna eat the food. It's fine. So who's Jerry? Everyone keeps saying hi to Jerry. What's happening? What's going on? This is the funniest thing. Hi, Jerry. You're new. Welcome, Jerry. Where are you? Say hello. Um, I'm Jerry, by the way. I'm Jerry Lynn. That's why it was kind of freaking me out for a minute. I was like, why are you like, did someone talk to my mother? What's going on? But it's spelled with an I. It's fine. Oh, Linda, your brother's here. That's amazing. Well, welcome, Jerry. It's great to have you. Jerry, I'm having a beer mosa because I like to have a cocktail when I'm cooking. So welcome to vegan cooking. Okay. This beer mosa is everything, you guys. I swear to you, cranberry orange Brett with fresh orange juice. Okay, moving on. All right, it's tofu scram time. So I'm gonna use, oh yeah, I am using a little olive oil. Everybody's fine. If you don't use oil, don't use it. Okay, what I just did here was probably half a teaspoon. I'm mostly doing it for a little, you know, add a little fat, add a little flavor. And I'm going to get this going. I'm gonna use my cast iron skillet today. And I'm going to talk you through tofu scramble, but I should go back because I asked if you guys had any questions. So were there any questions about the oats? 1 cup rolled oats to 4 cups liquid. And I don't, without seeing any questions, I will move on to the tofu scramble. So a couple of things that I think who here has never made a tofu scramble? Tell me in the chat, just say no. I want to know if we have any newbies here for tofu scramble. Oh, wowie. Okay. This is exciting. So no matter what I tell you, you'll think it's true and you'll just do what I say. This is amazing. Okay, cool. All right. So you do not, if you don't use oil, you do not have to put olive oil in your skillet. I do it because I don't want it to stick. I'm using my cast iron skillet, but I could also add some water or some veggie broth to keep it from sticking. And so that's entirely up to you. And truthfully, I'll probably need, I might actually put a little water in here because even with that tiny amount I used, it's possible I might need a little water if things start to stick. So let's talk about the elements of a tofu scramble. No surprise, tofu. You can use any kind of tofu you want. You can use extra firm, you can use firm, you can use soft, you can use silken. It's actually really entirely up to you. I tend to use an extra firm or a firm because if tofu scramble is new to you or plant-based or vegan cooking is new to you, tofu scramble is kind of like the vegan response to scrambled eggs. And because this is breakfast, I mean, so a lot of times when you're new to veganism or new to eating plant-based and you're like, what do I eat now? I always had bacon and eggs, or I always had this, or I had that. So sometimes finding that way to sort of transition and move into a plant-based version of food that you ate is one way to do it. Having said that, tofu, which is a bean from soybeans, is one of the highest sources of legume protein that we can get. And the texture is amazing, and it can take on so many flavors because it's super neutral, and then it can take different flavors on. So someone asked about steel cut. Oh, you know, the funny thing about steel cut, I don't even know what the question was, but I actually cook my steel cut oats in only 5 minutes in the pot, but I do rolled oats for 6. So just an FYI, I don't know why, I'm not quite sure what the question was, but so usually what I do I start with my tofu is when we had our tofu class, I talked about freezing. So this had been a frozen block of tofu that I thawed overnight and it's been pressing. Look at all that liquid. So this is a tofu press. I don't have the link. I'm sorry. It'll be on the website. We've done it before. Oh, I want to start putting some stuff in here. So I have some onion, carrot, celery, and mushroom that I'm going to get in here just so that the skillet is happy. So I'm starting with, I was going to tell you I'm starting with the Mirepoix, but it's just a complete lie. So a Mirepoix is a great way to start a tofu scramble, as well as a lot of other different kinds of saute. A Mirepoix is a combination of onion, carrot, and celery. And the ratio is usually 1 onion to 2 parts of the carrot and celery. So if I had a cup of diced onion, I would do a half a cup of diced carrot, half a cup of diced celery. You don't have to do this. That's just how I like to do a lot of my sautés. I didn't do that today because I had a bunch of scallions sliced up or chopped up from last night. And I had some celery that was like, it was use it or lose it time. So I used 3 stalks of celery, half of a carrot stick, and then some scallions because I can do whatever I want. And then I saw those mushrooms and I mean, I try to, you know, throw mushrooms in whenever I can. And that segue I want to get back to, and believe me, we're going to talk about the tofu scramble. Don't worry. To me, with some of these vegan breakfasts, it's such a great opportunity to bring in tons of vegetables into breakfast. A lot of people who are new to eating vegan or plant-based are like, oh my God, if I eat one more vegetable, or I don't really love vegetables, how do I get more vegetables? To me, breakfast is like the perfect meal. And it's not what people normally think of, because pre-vegan days for a savory breakfast, it wasn't usually, other than a potato, but it was usually some kind of meat and something that came from an animal, like an egg, right? And so we have to rethink things and determine that rules are, you know, are not necessary. And so when I start to put a savory breakfast together, I just start grabbing vegetables, because I know that when I make this is gonna work for Dave. Between these savory oats with tons of vegetables, squash and bok choy, and I'm gonna be putting some kale in this tofu scramble, Dave and I are gonna have breakfast ready to reheat all week long between these two things with tons of vegetables. But I love to start with a bit of a mirepoix, and these mushrooms are absolutely lovely. I like using my cast iron skillet a lot, because even though I just used a teeny tiny bit of oil, it's just enough for this to not stick, but it's getting really, really fragrant. So, so back to the tofu. I freeze my tofu for two reasons. It's repetitive for those of you who've been with me for a while now. One is if I'm making an air fried or a baked tofu, I love the texture of frozen and then thawed tofu, and I love how it absorbs the marinade. But the other reason I do it is just to be frugal. We all know how grocery shopping has been over the last couple of months, and so I always have a couple blocks of tofu delivered with my groceries, and I just throw it in the freezer so that regardless what the date is on the tofu, I'm gonna have it last for a while. And I do the same, I freeze my tempeh. Let's see. Oh, whoever had the question about steel cut oats, when we have a moment, remind me, and then I will pull up my chart from my book, Vegan Pressure Cooking, and I'll give you some times with some of these oats. Okay, so you see all of this. Oh, I just love the way these mushrooms look. I want you to just see how nice and brown they're getting. We've talked about cast iron skillets. You guys know I'm a big fan. But back to this tofu. So look at all this liquid that's come out. So I'm about to dump that. And then I'm going to do one of my favorite things. The oats just started. So, you know, we did a preheat, but you also know we put a lot in there. We put 4 cups of liquid, oats, and we had about 4 cups of vegetables. All of those things, like how much food you have in a pot, can have an impact on how quickly it will come up to pressure. But we're at 6 minutes now, and then we'll probably let it release for at least 10 minutes. So here's my tofu, liquid's gone. So here's how okay, we'll see what team you're on. Okay, I asked before, who's never made tofu scramble? Now, for those of you who have made it, how many of you cube your tofu, and how many of you crumble? So just say cube or crumble. I'm gonna be very curious. Crumble, 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 cube. Okay, good, we got both teams, love it. I actually just asked these questions so I can have a drink of my beer mimosa. Okay, both, all right, good, I like that, great. Okay, so the reason I asked, I remember one time going to a restaurant. I was a brand new baby vegan, and I went with some friends who had been vegan for a while, and they were outraged that the tofu scramble was in cubes. They were like, it's supposed to be a scramble. And I was like, I didn't know this was a thing. Like, are we, you know, like this, things are pretty divisive right now in the world. And apparently it happens with tofu scramble as well. But I do have to say, once I started making it myself, I am pretty much on team scramble. But I think the other reason I'm really on team scramble is more about, I like to have variety of texture when I'm cooking. And I often will cube tofu and stir fry it with vegetables for dinner. So I think in some ways it's just kind of like this head game, like this is breakfast, so it should be crumbled. So anyway, I'm going to show you how I crumble it. Nothing fancy here, but it's all about my hands. So this is nice and spongy because it was frozen and then thawed. And then I just crumble it with my fingers. That sizzling is because there's just a little bit of liquid left in there. So to recap, while I'm crumbling with my fingers, with a tofu scramble, you want to start with some kind of little veggie saute to get it going. Then you want to get your tofu in, and then we're going to start adding layers of flavor. But there are 2 very key ingredients. One was on the list I gave you guys on in the newsletter. Oh, speaking of that, I'm going to drop the link to the newsletter. If you're new to this, or if you're not on my newsletter list yet, I do try really hard to get the information out on social media too, but I always send out the list of ingredients for the cook along in my newsletter. How many people are cooking along with me, by the way? I know a lot of you just always say later, but I'm kind of curious. So I've got my tofu in here. Anybody cooking along? Let me know in the chat if you are, or maybe you can't because you're so busy cooking. See, this is when it's going to start to stick a little bit. So I'm just going to keep adding a little bit of water to keep that from happening. And it's time for me to get a big girl skillet or spatula so we can really do this and get these crumblies. Okay, so let's talk about two of the most important ingredients. Who wants to tell me what my two ingredients I'm going to tell you are the next two important things to put in your tofu scramble? Anybody? Anybody? Well, someone said umami, which is true. Turmeric and nooch. Aha, good, Brenda. So definitely turmeric. Someone said salt. Do you know if there's a certain kind of salt I might want to use? Black salt. All right. Okay. So no one's wrong here, by the way. All of these things are true. So first off, turmeric. So one of the main reasons turmeric is used in tofu scramble, even though it's a wonderful anti-inflammatory spice, turmeric is yellow. And when you put it on tofu, it starts to look like scrambled eggs. Clever, huh? Okay, so we're gonna do that. I'm never shy with my turmeric. So I'm gonna probably do, I think I'm gonna do about a teaspoon because I just love this stuff. And then the next secret ingredient, actually I wanna show you two things. Let's see if I can find it. So black salt is actually pink and it's also called kalanomic. It's an Indian spice and it's finely ground. And when you sniff it, it has this like kind of sulfurish, kind of eggy smell to it. So it's fantastic in a tofu scramble. So that's what I got this in New York. And every time I go to New York, I just take a little bag and I refill it and I keep putting it in this jar. But also a company called Sparrow sells this egg salt and they call it egg salt. It's black salt. I'll show you. Oh, can I show you? It's the exact same thing, you guys. So you can go to your local Indian market or Asian Pacific market here in Colorado Springs. You can also, I'm sure you can get it at Whole Foods. And I think you can get it at Mountain Mama too, which here in Colorado Springs is our local health market. So I'm going to put in a half a teaspoon. A little bit of this goes a very long way. And so start small, but it will start to smell like eggs. In fact, Sharon, didn't we use black salt in the Fundamentals of Vegan Cooking class in January? Everyone freaked out. They were like, are you making eggs? I'm like, no, I swear I'm not. Okay, so that's the base. I want you to see the color change once we get this turmeric in here. Okay, the oats are done. So now we need to wait for a natural release. And we'll probably do that. If at 15 minutes, if it doesn't release, I'll release it. But I want you to see these colors, but then we're going to start to talk about the flavors and what we're going to start to do. So I haven't completely combined all of this yet, but I'm going to pick this up. It's a little tricky because the skillet gets pretty hot, but I want you to see. So look at that bright yellow color. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, so now I'm going to start playing with some spices. So here's how I start to make decisions around flavor profiles. I usually kind of think in terms of the flavor profile of an ethnic dish or a dish, you know, that sort of has just like ingredients that make sense together. So today when I was thinking about this, you guys know I love umami. Oh, that reminds me. Okay, so I have this name in my new book, not the baking book that's coming out in July, but the other book I'm working on that's not done yet. Please kill me. It's like taking me forever. I am coming up with this spice blend, and I thought I was coming up with really clever names, but people like totally vetoed me on Facebook. And the idea is that it's a way to bring out lots of flavor without a lot of salt. And I really wanted to focus on umami. And so at one point I was going to call it umbami. I thought that was hilarious, but then people said it sounded like the Unabomber. So whatever, that got vetoed. So anyway, I don't know what I'm going to call it, but it's got really yummy stuff in it. I've got some dried mushrooms in here and all kinds of spices. So I'm not going to add salt today to this. I'm going to do half a teaspoon of whatever this thing will one day be called. That's sort of an umami blend, but I love to use tomato powder. Do you guys use tomato powder? I am obsessed with tomato powder. You can take tomato powder and you can add water to it and make tomato paste from this or tomato sauce from this. And so I love it because sometimes I want a little of that acidic kind of umami-ness from tomatoes, but I don't really need like a can of tomato paste or even sauce. So I'm just going to do, I think I'm going to do a teaspoon of tomato powder. So that's going to start to layer some flavor, but then I'm going to do my smoked paprika. You guys know I love smoky for umami. I'm actually only going to do a quarter teaspoon of that, and I think I'll do some smoked chipotle chili too. So that'll bring a little heat to it. So now what I'm going to do is combine this up, and you'll see we've got lots of color here. And so now we've got our yellow with our tofu, we've got orange, we've got green, and then we're going to add a lot of green. I'm going to add this kale, and this is how I'm going to get my leafy green in for my tofu scramble. I love to have a leafy green, and I actually think I am going to add just a little water on top of this. And I don't care to really cook the kale. It's a longer cooking green than say a baby spinach or even that bok choy that we have going on in the Instant Pot. But I want it to start to pop with a verdant color, really bright, start to glisten. It already is on the bottom. You guys already know how I feel about vegetables. I'm a firm believer in, I kind of want to know they're there. I don't want a mushy veggie. I want it to have some of its texture. And so when I'm doing a leafy green, I add it at the end, and I'm not worried about cooking it. I'm interested in softening it so that it changes the texture. And we all know kale can be a little tricky, so we definitely want it to soften. That's why we massage it when we make salads. But you can already see how bright this green is. And as far as I'm concerned, this is cooked. We just made it, but oh, we need a little pepper, don't you think? Can't go wrong with pepper. Let's put a little black pepper in here. And then give it a little final stir. This color is so beautiful. I'm very happy with it. And arugula is amazing in this. You do realize that when you cook with arugula, basically the minute you put it in the skillet, it's cooked. So like when you buy a big old bag of arugula and it serves like one, you know what I'm talking about if you cooked with it. So let me get this off the heat. And then I'm going to spoon this into a bowl so you can see. Oh, here, we'll just use this one. And then let's do this. And then I'll stop and answer some of your questions. Let's get some of that turmeric off. So look at that gorgeous tofu scramble. Does that look good? Do we like it? Thumbs up? Yes. Smoked chipotle chili. Yes, someone just asked about that. Actually, ground chipotle is smoked. Sorry, it's just chipotle chili. Okay, good. So I'm going to set this aside. And then, okay, so ask, oh, I got claps, yay. So if you have questions about the tofu scramble, let's take a minute. Thank you, Brenda, for sharing that. And I'll actually, oh, wait, we didn't put the nooch in. I'm going to stir a little nutritional yeast in. I'm going to sprinkle a little on top of that bowl, and then I'm just going to put a little in here. So I'll have it ready this week. Nutritional yeast, if you're new to nutritional yeast, is a nutty, it's not like a yeast, it's gluten-free. It's a way to bring a nuttiness and cheesiness into our food, but it also, if it happens to be fortified, is often fortified with B12, which we don't get when we're eating a plant-based diet, thanks, from our food. So it's a great way to kind of add some B12, but you all know how I feel about that too, which is eat your, or, you know, supplement your B12, please. Okay, so that's the tofu scramble. What questions do we have? I'm gonna actually drop this basic formula here. And then I have a tofu scramble in almost every book I've ever written. So I'll make a point to put one of my tofu scrambles in the website. So Also, I wanted to, this is the time of class that I will drop a link if you like what's happening, and that we're doing these every Sunday into the, probably into the fall at least. I will gratefully accept tips. Here's the newsletter list that I told you about. And then I want to do the Facebook group. We are on Facebook talking about vegan cooking together here. So, okay. So, Sharon, I got your message, and yes, thank you. I'm getting private messages. So do I see any, how long did I pressure cook the oats? So I used rolled oats, so I did that for 6 minutes. Okay, any questions about tofu scramble? Have you tried, wait, what? Tell me more, Lisa. Hing, what is that spice? Oh, Jerry, the last ingredient is nutritional yeast. I don't think I have a package because I tend to buy it in bulk, but I'll show you what it looks like because I'm going to be using it in my oats too. So nutritional yeast can come in flakes, and it can come fine, which is what I'm going to use in my oats. And it's a yeast that is, it's not a yeast like for baking yeast. It's a brewer's yeast. It adds a nuttiness and a cheesiness to plant-based cooking. So like if you were going to make a gravy or a sauce and you wanted it to get thick and you wanted it to sort of have that heartiness that you would expect from some ingredients that you might use from animal products, nutritional yeast can do that. And you can buy it in bulk. Instead of going out and buying a big box of it or a big bag of it, some grocery stores have it in bulk. So you could go and just buy a scoop of it and try it and start to sprinkle it on things like oats and like tofu scramble. I sprinkle it on salads. It's really great. So hing is an Indian spice. Oh, used in khichdi. Oh, I didn't know that. Thanks, Adriana. You know I love me some khichdi. Okay. Does tomato powder taste like raw or cooked tomatoes? That's a great question. I don't consider, I haven't really thought about it. Let's see. Cooked. It reminds me of cooked. I love tomato powder. I use it so much. I use it in soups. Sometimes if I don't have a can of tomatoes, but I do have a tomato, I will chop up a tomato, put it in super chili, and then I'll whisk some tomato powder in some hot water and add that to the soup to sort of kind of make it like diced tomatoes. It's really great. And you can buy that in bulk as well. I think it's a really great thing to add to that. Oh, thank you, Brenda. She loves my hacks. And some would say I am a hack in the kitchen, but whatever, they don't need to judge. Okay, so I want to, I got this yummy, crummy things going on the bottom of my cast iron, and I cannot wait to get all of that into the container to save it because I come for that stuff, man. That is that, like, I come to dinner. If you say that you made gravy and you have crumbly stuff in the bottom of the gravy, I'm coming to your house for dinner. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna make is a recipe from the book that I am working on right now. And it's just a fun riff on avocado toast. You know, the thing that everybody thinks is the reason that young people can't buy houses because they're spending all their money on avocado toast. Stop saying that about them. It's not true. You know, like, listen, I don't eat a lot of toast for breakfast, but I do love me some avocado. And when I started working on this most recent book, I really thought a lot about how to make in the breakfast chapter, things that are accessible, definitely using sort of, you know, whole foods. So I'm going to show you what I've come up with. So I am starting, this avocado toast is actually going to start with diced apples and diced pecans. So I'm doing this for a couple of, so these are green apples. And I'll put this down here so you can see what's happening. Let me grab my avocado. So if you have not, I'm sure you all have done this before. I'm not telling you anything that the rest of the world doesn't know. It's funny. You know how it is with an avocado. This could either be gorgeous or really ugly because I've had it for a week. So, whoa, yay, score. Isn't it like a present? Every time you open up an avocado, it's either going to be like the most amazing present you ever got, or it's a freaking lump of coal. And I was a little worried because it was feeling soft. And I was thinking we were going to have a big old black lump of coal, but it is gorgeous. Okay, so I'm going to scoop out with a fork. I'm just going to scoop the avocado out. and directly into the apples and the pecans. And then this little trick, I'm sure you've seen, you take a butcher's knife. Do you guys know, I never talk about knife skills, but when you're using your chef knife, you always want to put your thumb here and your finger here. That's how you have control. When you go like this and you're chopping and slicing, that's when your hand can go like this. When you put your thumb and your forefinger, you have complete control on that. So I'm just gonna go like this with the seed, the pit, and move on. Okay, so now I've got avocado, diced Granny Smith apple, chopped pecan. God, I love avocado. I almost just put that in my mouth. Oh, I'm gonna go ahead and do it anyway. I love avocado. All right, wait, there's more. I don't wanna waste that. Okay, now I'm gonna add a little ground cinnamon. I'm gonna add a little kosher salt, a few pinches. Then I'm going to take a fresh sliced lemon and squeeze this over it. I think a half is gonna be fine. So we'll start with that and see. And then I'm just going to mash the avocado, smash it, and combine it with these apples, cinnamon, pecans, lemon juice, and salt. So what I'm doing here is I'm adding some texture, but I'm also saving us a little money. I know you like to see the things, but I like to see you. Hi, I'm back. I'm stirring. So, and what I mean by that, you know, sometimes avocados can be expensive, right? So if you're trying to make avocado toast for your family, and you're like, okay, that's gonna be a lot of avocados, then this is a way to kind of stretch that out a little bit so that you are getting a fruit in. And that, I'm so glad I just thought of that. One of the things I really wanted to talk about today, and I kind of started early on when we're talking about breakfast, vegan breakfast, is always thinking about how you can get your 5 vegan food groups in that we were talking about. So in this case, I have my avocado, which depends on who you talk to. Is it a fruit or is it a vegetable? Today, let's pretend like it's a vegetable. Got my apple, which is my fruit. I've added my pecans, which is my nuts. So what I don't have in this one is a grain. Oh, but I'm going to in a minute because I'm going to put it on toast. And I don't have a vegetable. Well, do I have a vegetable? No, I don't have a, no, I have a nut. I have it all. This is amazing. Okay, anyway, so, so I'm going to take, this is some of my fresh baked bread. You know, I make sourdough every week. And I made, I want to bring this cutting board over. I want to move some of these things so it doesn't look so nasty. I make sourdough bread every week. I know some of you want me to do a class on it. I just don't think I'm that good at it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where, you know, have you heard of the imposter syndrome? Let me just tell you that mine is actually, it's not imposter syndrome. It's true. I'm not great at sourdough, but I seem to be able to make it okay. Anyway, this loaf I actually made in my bread machine because I was like too lazy to make it all look pretty and a round boule. Who has time for that? Just bake the darn thing. So I did it in my bread machine. But I did all-purpose flour and chickpea flour and a little vital wheat gluten. And then you see these little flecks of black sesame seeds. So even my bread has some seeds in it. So I've got grains, seeds, my avocado, my apple. I've got some lime juice. And now I'm going to spoon this on my toast. This should make enough for 4 really hearty pieces of avocado toast. And it's just 1 apple, 1 avocado. I'm going to show this to you in a minute. I'm just trying to get it all together for you. And I'll put this here so you can see how pretty it looks when I want to fill in that little hole. I'm going to take a bite of this because I'm actually really hungry. Okay, so here's the avocado toast, but it's avocado apple toast. Where's my knife? And let's see if I can get this pit off. So I'm just going to cut it in half. And there is a nice thick apple avocado toast. Excuse me, I'm taking a bite. What can I say? I think it's delicious. Sorry. Okay. What questions do you have about the avocado toast? So the other way you can make avocado toast without doing all this stuff that I did for a cookbook is you can take avocado, salt, pepper, nutritional yeast, and mash it together and put it on toast. So it is pretty basic, but this is also a way to show you that you can do a lot with it. Now, one of the reasons I used lime juice was because we're probably not going to eat this today. Well, I'm obviously going to eat that piece of toast, but we're not going to finish it. And we know what happens to avocado, right? So by adding the apples, so getting a little bit of that juice and that sugar from that, plus adding the lime juice, it's going to let it stretch a little bit longer than avocado would. But we probably, I mean, truthfully with these, I will put this on tacos this week. I am woman enough to do it. In fact, I declare to you right now that tomorrow I'm going to call this avocado apple guacamole. Yeah, I did. And that's going to go on some tacos tomorrow. So bam, I'm going to be able to eat it within 2 days. Check me out on Instagram and you'll get to see it. Okay, so we're getting very close to smoked paprika is a great idea. I just thought you guys would be bored with me because I'm always putting smoked something or other on my food. Oh, okay, Elaine, hopefully I answered your question about the avocado turning brown. It could, but we're trying to prevent it a little bit. All right, so one more thing that I want to show you, and then we're going to check out the savory oats, is I got to kind of tidy up after myself. Let's move this. So all these things I showed you are things I make, but the truth of the matter is every single morning, pretty much of my life, well, this is new. I didn't used to like fruit, which is really weird. I know. I used to always say that I'm the world's worst vegan because fruit's not my jam. Suddenly, I'm freaking into fruit. I am like all over. And it might be because I started this new produce delivery. And if you live in Colorado Springs, it's called Farm to Fork. No, it's not all organic, but I also don't worry about organic. I usually look at the Dirty Dozen and try to work around that. I just liked it because, hello, I wasn't going to the grocery store anymore and I was having it delivered and the produce was like really the first couple of weeks of the pandemic. So I found out about Farm to Fork. And on Mondays, I just get these gorgeous boxes of produce, of fruits and vegetables. And of course, I wanted to make it worth my while and I didn't want to feel like I was wasting my money. So I made a point to do it. So truthfully, on any given morning, I am eating fruit, nuts, seeds, and I'm getting some a legume because I use my homemade soy yogurt. So I'm actually not going to make it for you right now just because I don't want to be wasteful and I don't want to put it all together in a bowl knowing I'm going to eat it tomorrow, but then the fruit might be soggy, but I'm going to show you the elements to it. So I usually do 3 or 4 pieces of fruit. I was talking to a friend recently who asked me, she was surprised by that amount because some people I think are, trying to reduce sugars and reducing fruits. And I just my approach is, since we're vegan, we're wanting to eat at least 5 or more servings of vegetables a day. We're wanting to eat at least 3 or more servings of fruits a day. And then we're going to want 3 servings of beans and legumes and 2 or 3, maybe 4, depending on what your needs are if you're an athlete, servings of grains. And so for me, it's just like the fruit happens in the morning and then I don't have to think about it again. Because usually during the day, if I'm snacking, it's like on baby carrots. Actually, the baby carrots are my dog's, but he and I have I'm like, one for you, one for mommy. But anyway, so I'll do baby carrots and hummus or whatever. So I just get my fruits in the morning and I'll just make a beautiful, beautiful bowl. I mean, a big bowl. I wonder if I have, I use a bowl like this big. And then I line it up sort of like an acai bowl. And I'm not going to get into acai, but I guess I will a little bit. So it's like a frozen, usually you can buy acai frozen. And also dragon fruit, and they're in like little pouches. So like when you go to a smoothie bar or a vegan restaurant, they might have an acai bowl, which is basically like if they've made a smoothie with this acai fruit or dragon fruit, but then they just put it in a bowl and then they line it up with like granola, maybe some nut butter, maybe some seeds or some nuts. So anyway, I just do my fruit bowls like this. So I will either take an apple or an orange, dice it up, and I'll just line it up in the bowl. Then I'll take a banana, just one, I'll slice it up and I line it up in the bowl. Then I'll take maybe these grapes, since that's what I got this week, and I'll line that up in a bowl. Then I'll add some berries right on top. But then the most important things, I will put ground flaxseed over it. Flaxseed, you want ground when you eat it. Chia seeds, you don't have to grind, but if you eat a whole flaxseed, it's just gonna go through your system and you're gonna find it in the toilet later. as a whole seed that did nothing for you. So while you might have enjoyed eating it, you got nothing out of it. But when it's ground, you get all the nutrients from it. And then I'll put walnuts or pecans on top. So I have tons of fruits, I have nuts, I have seeds, and then I'll take some of my homemade soy yogurt and I'll spoon that on top. Sometimes a half a cup. If I'm doing 3 pieces of fruit, I might do closer to a cup of the yogurt. If I'm doing 4 pieces of fruit, I might do like a half cup or a quarter cup. And it's just for flavor as well. So I wanted to share that with you just to say, you don't have to get into the kitchen in the morning and because you're eating vegan or plant-based, be chopping and dicing and mirepoixing and adding spices and pressure cooking and do all of that. You don't have to do that to eat a delicious vegan breakfast. You can just have avocado and apple toast. You can just have a bowl of fruit with seeds and nuts and yogurts, you know, with that great probiotic effect. And on the weekends, if you're batch cooking, make a big old batch of savory oats, make a big old batch of tofu scramble. So then throughout the week, you have some variety. One morning you're having your fresh fruit bowl. The next morning you're reheating your savory oats. The next morning you're having more fruit, or maybe you're having a smoothie. And then the next day you're having some tofu scramble. So you have variety all week long, but you don't have to spend all of that time in the morning getting it ready. So with that, let's take a look at the tofu scramble. No, we already looked at the tofu scramble, the savory oats. Okay, so the float valve is down, which means it's released pressure. Oh, it's so nice and thick. I think I'll bring it over so you guys can see. I want to put it on the saute function though. How am I going to do that? I'm going to figure it out. Don't worry. I want to cook some of this broth down, but I want you to see. Okay, hold on. I'm looking for a spoon. And then I'm going to try to get some of this out so you guys can see it. Oh, yeah. It's like almost like a porridge. Okay, so I think I'm going to have to lift it out so you can see it. But we have an important ingredient that we haven't added yet, but I want you to see what it looks like. Now, squash has some water in it too. So you're going to see that it's kind of liquidy, but you see the thickness of the oats. And this is almost like a porridge, but I'm about to put in my nutritional yeast. And I'm going to put in about a quarter cup because this is going to be like 4 to 6 servings. So I'm going to start with a quarter cup. And it's already bubbling. I don't know if I can get that closer to you or not. Jerry, you're new here, so you may not know that I don't do things fancy around here. I'm not one of those food people who has a really fancy kitchen. Okay, so it's already starting to thicken up just from being on the saute feature. I'm going to stir this up and then I'm going to bring it over so you guys can see what it looks like. I don't know if you've ever had porridge before, but porridge is my jam. When I took, I've told this story before, I think. When I went vegan, I was living in New York and I met this woman, her name's Lee, and we met on Twitter. So when I say met, I mean like we knew each other on Twitter. We never met in person. And she lives in Philadelphia. Does she live in Philadelphia? Somewhere around there. And she posted something on Twitter about her and her daughter taking a cooking class. And I'm like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. So she messaged me and she said, well, actually, they have a 3-day intensive. Do you want to go together? And I was like, okay. So like I made plans to go to Philadelphia for a 3-day cooking class with a woman I'd never met before. And then I get to it, and it's with Christina Perillo, who some of you probably know who she is. Christina Cooks was her show on PBS for a long time. It was a macrobiotic cooking class. I was like, what does macrobiotic even mean? I'm just like a girl from Iowa. Anyway, one of the things I learned there, it was a great class. But one of the things I learned there was that porridge is like very common in some Asian communities for breakfast. And it's one of my favorite ways to eat. So that's why I put so many vegetables in with these oats so that I can get this thick porridge-like oat. So look at how thick this is. Isn't this amazing? Let me spoon it out for you. That nutritional yeast was just the perfect amount. And you can put any vegetable that you want in here. This is probably the worst spoon to do this with. And we've got mushrooms, we've got squash, we've got bok choy, obviously our rolled oats. We used veggie broth. We sauteed with rice vinegar. And so this goes back to this intuitive cooking, you guys. So I went with spicier kinds of things for the tofu scramble. I went with sort of an Asian influence. Let me just get that with my finger. Oh my God. Oh, Siri's talking to me. Hey, I wish you could smell this, and I wish you could eat this. So look at this thickness, and look at these chunks of veggies, and this bok choy. It's gonna be really hot, but I'm gonna go for it. It's so good, and it doesn't need any soy sauce. It doesn't need any additional sodium. And you guys saw what I put in there, probably 2 teaspoons of rice vinegar and maybe 2 teaspoons of the tamari or soy sauce to get that started with the saute. So what questions do you have? Let's see. So breakfast burrito. I'm looking at what all I see. Yes, you could totally put the tofu scramble in a burrito, in a tortilla, and have an amazing breakfast burrito or breakfast tacos. I love corn tortillas, and I put them in my air fryer for like 4 minutes, and I put them in a little taco shell holder. And you can just put like hot tofu, or we might have that for dinner. Wait, I'm already having to. Oh, wait a second. Tofu scramble tacos with apple avocado guacamole for dinner tonight. Yes. Laura, are you making fun of me? My friend Laura. Okay. Oh no. Okay. Got it. Okay. So someone asked about adding potatoes to your tofu scramble. That's a great idea. If I were gonna add, I actually was gonna do potatoes today because I'm cuckoo for potatoes, and I know I'm getting more tomorrow, and I have some left. But honestly, it does take longer, right? Because you saw how quickly that tofu scramble came together. And it actually would have been done sooner if I just shut my trap and just like cooked it, but I was talking to you. So tofu scrambles can cook up very, very quickly. But potatoes are amazing in it. A way to make the potatoes cook quicker though, is to do tiny pieces of them, almost like a hash. And so what I'll do is I'll quarter a russet potato, or maybe some creamers or whatever potatoes I have, truthfully. But I'll chop them in my food processor so that they're very small pieces, and I'll put them in with the mirepoix. So I'll have onion, carrot, celery, and my potatoes. And I won't add the tofu or anything else until the pieces of potato become fork tender. But if you do them very small, like chopped in a food processor, they're still going to cook up within about 8 minutes, and then add everything. So you might add maybe 5 minutes to it. But if you do really like sort of coarsely chopped potatoes or diced potatoes, that could take a little bit longer. It could get closer to 20 minutes. So I hope that happened. Someone thinks I'm getting buzzed on my 2 ounces of drink. I'm not, girl, this is me. Potatoes in the air fryer are amazing. And by the way, I've done tofu scramble in the air fryer, which might sound a little weird, but basically I just take the elements of what I would do with the tofu scramble, and then I do cube it. But what I do is I start with the potatoes, and then I layer in onions, and then I put the tofu in toward the end. And I don't worry about getting that sort of air fried kind of crunchy tofu, but just more of it being cooked and getting some flavor. Let's see. Any questions? So we talked about our fruit bowl, we have our savory oats, we have our tofu scramble, and we have the avocado toast. And it's 2:03. I'm getting so much better, you guys. 4 things, and I'm just 3 minutes over, which is kind of a miracle. So for those of you who had no idea what to make for breakfast, I'm hoping that you feel like you have some ideas. I'm going to post a whole bunch of links right now. There's a link if you want to leave a tip. There's a link to my classes, although that one doesn't look like it's a clickable link. Let me see what I can do about that. I don't know what happens with that sometimes. But my upcoming, I have upcoming classes thanks to you, your ideas. And let's see if I can remember them. Next week, it's going to be, that's not clickable, sorry, jlgoesvegan.com/classes. Next week is grains. I better pull up my list. I can't even remember. Let's see. JL Goes Vegan classes. I have to go to my own website. Next week is grains, and I think I'll do some stovetop, obviously. I think I'll do some Instant Pot or pressure cooking one. Oh yeah, and then June 14th, it's going to be vegan eggs and dairy. And so basically just kind of talking about how to replace those things that you used for so many years, whether you're baking or in your cooking. And then this one, because we came up with those all together last week during class, but the one that I came up with after that was we're going to bring Dave back because you liked having him around for the pizza class. And we are going to do meaty vegan cooking. And I believe what we're going to do is teach you how to make homemade seitan, because some of you have been asking for seitan. And Dave follows my pressure cooking recipe, but I think we're going to show you a couple different ways to do that. But we're also going to do, I'm looking on my website to tell you exactly what we're going to try to do. We're going to make seitan corned beef for a corned beef sandwich. We are going to then Dave is going to share. So let me back this up for a minute so you understand the purpose of this class. A lot of you live with people who aren't vegan or plant-based, and and that came up a lot on the survey that you filled out. And the reason I wanted Dave to come back is because I always joke and call Dave a reluctant vegan. It's not because I like beat him up and made him become vegan. He ended up doing it, but it was kind of like one of those things where we'd gone to some fundraiser and we were in the car coming back, and he looked at me and he's like, oh God, fine, I'm vegan. Because it's like he just couldn't argue anything anymore. He's like, we're destroying the environment. Animal agriculture is terrible. I'm pissed off because I like meat, but I'm going to be a vegan. So he's that kind of vegan. So in our house, we tend to kind of cook a little bit different. So like on taco night, I'm putting beans and rice in a taco, and Dave's putting in like Beyond Meat or Impossible Meat. And listen, I love that stuff too, because he gives me sometimes a combo. I did like black beans and Impossible last week. But what we thought we'd do with this class is, one, show you how to make homemade vegan meat, which is seitan. Then we're going to look at some of Dave's favorite ways to use like the Beyond ground and the Impossible ground. And I think he wants to make for you some meatballs. And then we're going to make some seitan, chicken style seitan in advance. And we're going to show you how to make those into vegan wings. And then we're going to show you some of his favorite things that you can buy in the frozen section, like the Gardein fishless fillets, and how you can do a layered meal with like some hand cut potatoes and then add some of the frozen things. So the idea behind this is, whether you eat completely whole food, plant-based, or you sort of do a hybrid, or you're trying to make people happy in your house while you try to eat the way you do, we think that this class called, we're calling it the Meaty Vegan, will be helpful to you. So that's the plan. Okay. Oh, Jerry, I'm so glad you enjoyed the class. I hope you come back every Sunday at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. And then just a little reminder that my plan right now is I'm continuing these classes. I think I'm going to continue them as they are currently through at least July. And then I think possibly in August is when I'll start this hybrid, which will be for every class. It'll have 4 payment buttons, and it will be register for $10, registered for $5, register for free, register for how much ever you want to pay. And that way, anybody who wants to take the class can take the class, and I can still continue my job as a culinary instructor. So that is my plan right now. So with that, are there any final questions about vegan breakfast? Thank you, Kim. That's very sweet. I'm glad that you like my recipes. Jerry, you'll see me next week, but we'll be later. That's fine, Jerry. And I also put the links up, if I remember to record, which I did today, on the website. And thank you to all of you who are saying thank you. Okay, this is so cute because some of you are very shy, and then you'll say, give the link one more time. So one more time, I'm just going to put, here's the link for the tips. I want to thank you all. You bring me so much joy. And I love thinking about you while I clean up my very dirty kitchen, because I'm also eating the food and wish I could share it with you. And wouldn't it be great one day, imagine if we could all be somewhere together and eat together. How can we, Laura, you and I are smart people. We know how to put events together. I think we're going to need to do a reunion somewhere fabulous. We'll think on that. I think that could be a very clever idea. But in the meantime, you guys are wonderful. Thank you so much. Those of you on YouTube, sorry, I like to talk to my friends. Oh, you know what I like to do? If your camera's off, if you wouldn't mind turning it on, the thing that I love to do at the end of this is to go into the full gallery view so that I can see your beautiful faces. Oh my gosh, look at your faces. So please turn your camera on. Oh, Tanisha, look at you. Jerry, I'm so glad that you're here. I get to see your face. There's Lisa, and sure, I wish I could say hello to all of you. I'm just scanning through and seeing these amazing faces. You guys are so awesome. Thank you for coming back every week. I can't wait for next week. If you have some ideas about what you want to see with grains, you can email me, because you know you have my email address, or you can message me on social media and let me know, but you can also trust me. It'll be easy. And so You guys are awesome. I'll see you next week. And those of you watching on YouTube, hey, you should check us out sometime. We're live every Sunday at 1 p.m. Mountain Time. You guys are awesome. Bye.